Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen, Rav Shmuel, with you, Rav Shmuel ben Yehoshua. Yes, Rashbi in the house, as I used to say. So it's good to be with you, and I hope you're enjoying these 10-minute Torahs, as I call them, my little discussions each week for my Torah. And glad you're tuning in, and I'm glad to be with you. Okay, so enough of the greetings. Not much going on this weekend. I know that last week we had a lot going on. We had some people reading the Torah, but there is one thing I do want to mention. Last week, or this week actually, is the UN Holocaust Memorial Day, Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's the 27th of January, or it was the 27th of January. And it's done every year on that day. This is different from Yom HaShoah, the day of the disaster. The Shoah is used. The word Shoah is used to refer to the Holocaust, and it basically means disaster. What was remarkable, I thought, about this is not just that we had a few congregants, and that is Isaac Kaufman and his sons, participating in a 24-hour reading. People take different turns reading the names of the people who perished in the Holocaust, the name of the Jews that perished in that. And that was very inspiring to see you take part of that, Isaac, and thank you for doing that. The other thing is that for class on Sunday, for our second session, when we usually talk about Torah and prayers, I showed a short movie, a short video. It was about 18, 19 minutes. And the name of it, some of you might be familiar with it, The Number on Great Grandpa's Arm. So this was a discussion of a 10-year-old boy named Elliot with his great grandfather, Jack Feldman, at the time was 95 years old and a survivor of the Holocaust. Jack passed away about a month ago or so. And it is, again, as weird as this may sound, as much of an oxymoron, it was basically a kid-friendly discussion of the Holocaust. And there was a beautiful interaction between the great-grandfather and Elliot and his brother talking about, not the details that maybe people of my generation were exposed to, because, we saw all the movies and we very, very graphic, and it definitely left an impression on us. It needed to be, because when I grew up in the 60s, it was a mere 20 years after the Holocaust. So it was a beautiful little film. The kids liked it. It was right at their level. They enjoyed it. And thank you, kids, for participating. And, the kids have actually brought this up a few times. And I thought this was a great way to kind of teach them a little bit more from someone who was actually there, and something that was kid appropriate. So, and thank you, parents, for allowing your kids to be part of this. So this week we talk about the portion of Terumah. Now, Terumah means set aside in the Eitz Chaim Chumash. This is the Chumash I'm going through this year. I like to kind of switch off and on. One year maybe I'll do the Sansino and the Art Scroll. Maybe another year I'll do the Eitz Chaim and the Sansino, but right now I'm just doing the Eitz Chaim. I like to get different perspectives of it. Yes, they all say the same thing. The Hebrew, of course, is the same. Sometimes the translation's a little different. The Eitz Chaim, it was meant to be sort of the next generation, or kind of like the Sansino, Dr. Hertz 2.0. Just kind of a little bit further commentary, not just of each individual of the important or of the notable verses, but also kind of a running commentary, general commentary as well. So in the Eitz Chaim, they compare the word terumah, set aside. It's translated as gifts, because what the portion opens up with Hashem telling Moses, tell the people of Israel, give gifts of what your heart tells you to give, of what your heart desires. And this is the precious metals and the stones and things that they got from the Egyptians as payment for their 100 plus years of slavery. Now, so think about the progression of this. So the Israelites were slaves for 120 years, which allowed the Egyptians to have free labor, which allowed them to thrive. When the Israelites left, this was sort of a tribute to them, kind of a back pay, for all the work they had done, breaking 3, 4, 5 generations of back breaking, thankless labor that for which they were not paid and they were given meager subsistence, which interestingly is similar to the idea of the Holocaust, except that the Egyptians didn't purposely, with a few exceptions, seek to destroy us. They just wanted to work us to death, yes, and it was brutal, but maybe not as brutal as the Holocaust of World War II. So just want to make that comparison. So now the payments, these precious metals, these stones, this payment is now going towards something very holy. And this is the construction of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, the Mikdash. Beit HaMikdash is what we call the synagogue, or what they call the great temple in Jerusalem that stood there. So why do we need, and this is something that the commentary talks about, if God is immaterial, and even the name Hashem, the Yud He Vav He, is ineffable, which means it's beyond our understanding, why do we need why does God need a physical place to reside? So, as humans, we are physical creatures, we are physical beings. And as physical beings, we relate to time and space in very concrete material terms. Whereas for Hashem, space and time are really meaningless. God is beyond all that. According to Kabbalah, God is Ein Sof, without end, which, by the way, is what Yud He Vav He means. It's a combination of was, is, and will be in Hebrew. So really, God resides everywhere and anywhere at any time, at every time. See? So God's presence is always kind of an intriguing concept for us, us with physical brains and minds that emanate out of that physicality. So is the Mishkan really for us as a way, as physical beings, to relate physically to something that's completely beyond our understanding? It also talks about the fact that the ark, the cover of the ark that housed the Ten Commandments, the stone tablets, and we're going to see it's going to house 2 sets, some people say, of stone tablets. And on top of it, you had 2 cherubs, 2 types of angels that looked like humans, animals, and birds, had features of all of it. And the wings, they were facing each other. The wings were kind of touching. And that was supposed to make a physical throne where God could reside, being the king of everything. God doesn't need a physical place to reside. But we as humans need to be able to relate physically again to Hashem. Now, this is interestingly contradicted by the fact that one of the main commandment, right? Do not make a likeness. Second commandment, do not make any likeness of God. That's included in the one about the idols. We don't make idols. We do not make physical representations of God, of Hashem. And yet, here we are, a seeming contradiction of God's house, of a sacred space, a sacred place. So is it a contradiction? Yes. Ultimately, it really isn't. Because yes, it's a place where Israel goes to meet God. Even in the synagogue where we have Torahs, the fact that we don't have a temple now. We still have our sacred space in the sanctuary of each synagogue where we have the Torah. And that's where we meet. That's where we come together to honor Hashem and thus honor ourselves in the worship, in the honoring of Hashem. So what this allows us to do is go through the rituals to remind ourselves. A lot of things we do in Judaism is a reminder. Our tzitzit, the mezuzot, the kippah that we wear on our head. I'm wearing one. People always ask me, Rabbi, where's your kippah on them? It's right here. Okay, I got one. Don't worry. Kashrut. Why do we keep kosher? People say, well, holy. I think one of the reasons is that it's a reminder that we're Jews. Everything we do reminds us that we're Jews, and that in turn reminds us to keep the mitzvot, to keep the commandments, to keep the covenant, the brit. So all this serves to take us away from our material existence, our day-to-day, our breaknet. We used to call it, the big phrase in the 60s and part of the 70s was the rat race. striving to make a living, paying our bills, interacting with people, et cetera, et cetera. It's to take us away from that. This is the idea of rest. It's not just we could sit down and plop down and, good, we don't have to do anything. But it's the idea of resting from the vigors and strength and stresses of everyday life. That's what the Mishkan kind of reminds us of. That's kind of my take on it. Okay. So, um, and we do this today by coming to the sanctuary and praying and joining with other Jews. And sometimes we get into these strifes with each other. We get into these arguments and these discussions. But when it comes down to it, folks, we're all still Jews, and we all do the same thing. We come to the sanctuary. We live basically the same life, and that kind of helps us come together. The idea too of a minyan of 10 people. Shabbat shalom. I wish you peace for the week. And I look forward to seeing you. Not hope, I look forward to seeing you in the sanctuary.